Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens. In this video, we're going to be providing you with your latest Leeds United news. We've got talks about Facundo Buonanotte. They continue. Smyth has mentioned him today. We're also going to talk about Daniel Farke's press conference. And then finally, we're going to wrap up, talk about potential other options for Leeds United and potential of the options of the loan market as well for Leeds United. So quite a bit to get into today. But before we get into it, of course, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, massive helps the channel as I aim to hit 1,000 subscribers. And the aim has been, as everybody will know who watches this daily, to hit 1,000 subscribers by the 1st September. So if you could help that, I'm 52 off now, so I'm nearly there. So if you could help and drop a subscription, that would be fantastic. But yeah, let's get into the video anyway, and let's start with the main story, in my opinion, today, which is regarding Facundo Buonanotte. It was suggested, first of all, it came out on Twitter from Smyth, who suggested that it looks like Leeds United are going to bring one more attacking option in. That is it. No other players, just one more attacker. We'll obviously discuss this after the news, what I think of what I'm all going to say. And then it was also suggested in his Inside Ellen Road newsletter that he does weekly. He's actually missed the last few because he's obviously been on holidays, everybody knows. But since he's come back, it's done his first one. And he suggested that the two players mentioned in this were Khannous and Facundo Buonanotte. But it sounds like Leeds United have pulled away from the Khannous race because he reported in that basically Khannous' camp haven't heard anything back from Leeds United, I think, in a few weeks now. So I think that one sounds like it's dead in the water. And it also sounds like Leeds have probably killed that one, potentially because of the demands of Leicester or whatever it is. That one is dead in the water. But it also says that Facundo Buonanotte is still an option for Leeds United. And I think if you look at that right now, for me, that is Facundo Buonanotte, of all of them, as you can see on the signing scale, is for me the most likely to end up at Ellen Road this season of all of them. I think there is a good chance that he arrives. He also goes on to say, as I said before we get into the discourse of it, that Leeds United mainly are looking for a right winger. That's the position they're looking for. They're looking for when we've heard this from Daniel Farke in his press conference anyway. Last week, last Thursday, when he suggested that Leeds are looking for a right-sided player who can also sort of fit in at the number 10 role. And Facundo Buonanotte, to be fair, does fit that role. So as I said, I've got him at a 2. I still think it's a bit unlikely, and I explain why. I don't think it's 100% going to happen. But yeah, I think right now, of all the rumours, I think I'm going to be pretty nailed in saying this, that Facundo Buonanotte is the one Leeds United want, and I think it is the one that's got most chance of happening. So let's start with digressing what I said there anyway, and let's start with the first thing, which is that Leeds United are going to sign one more attacker. That is not enough. As I said yesterday, we've got to have unity in the fan base. That's all true. I can still give my opinion on a transfer window. That isn't enough. We can't have one more attacker. So far as our attacking players, we bought Okafor, who we're going to get onto because of the problem with Okafor. We've brought in DCL, who did look really promising. I said that in my most recent video, looked really promising. We've brought Nemecha in, and we haven't brought anyone in the right-hand side. And we haven't brought anyone of creativity in the number 10 role either. With our most creative sort of midfielder coming in, probably being Stack. Obviously, Tanaka's probably our most creative, but Stack obviously being the other one that we brought in this summer, who's going to play that sort of more advanced 8 role. But it's not enough. It isn't enough. For me, looking at the team right now, I get why we're not going for a number 10. We don't play with a number 10. We're a flat 4-3-3. Everybody knows. Or if you're not going to be a flat 4-3-3, we've got a holder in Gruev at the weekend, but mainly, hopefully, throughout the season, Ampadu. And then we're going to play with 2 sort of box-to-box number 8s in terms of Stack and Tanaka. And that is the way we're going to play. That is the adaptation you've seen from the Championship to the Premier League with Daniel Farke. He's gone from last year playing with a number 6, quite clearly, a number 8, and a number 10, which in his normal 4-2-3-1, to this season playing with a number 6 and 2 number 8s. That is his adaptation, and that is to add physicality to the midfield, and that is to add defensive support into midfield to be able to cope with playing at a higher level. Because we saw at Norwich, he didn't do that. He didn't play. He just carried on. He had Todd Cantwell for a while in the number 10 role, obviously, in that first season. I think Emi Buendia was playing the 10 role as well, but he's adapted from that. That isn't what he's going to do anymore. It's going to be this number 6 and 2 number 8s, and that's what we're going to have to put up with. So if that is going to be the case, we don't really need a number 10, and I've said this after the Everton game. So if there's anywhere we need on the pitch, it is going to be a right winger, and I get that. But we need another forward, in my opinion. We need another forward. My opinion is that Joel Perrault is not going to be good enough to really provide much at all this season. And I know that sounds really harsh, and people are going to go, but he scored 19 goals, Scott. And I get all that, but it's a different level. it's a different system as well, which we need to bear in mind. We're not playing with a number 10 this year where Perrault did okay at times last year. That isn't happening. And by the way, when Farke first came in, he said he sees him more as a number 10 and he sees Rutter as a number 9. So, bearing that in mind as well. I just think Perrault is the complete wrong option for us. I don't think it offers anything in terms of press. I don't think he offers anything in terms of being able to hold the ball up. I don't think he offers anything in terms of ability to get away from defenders. I don't think his physical attributes are good enough. I don't think he's strong enough. I don't. The only thing that I can think in Joel Perrault's game that's going to be able to work in the Premier League is his finishing ability. But I also think his movement's really poor, so he's not going to be opportunities to see the finishing ability. Whereas when I look at Calvert-Lewin, and when he came on the pitch, he had 3 chances in 30 minutes, and he got that because his movement's so much better, because he behaves like a number 9. And you even heard this in Daniel Farke's press conference today, when he mentioned that the movement of Daniel Calvert-Lewin was really, really strong, and we haven't really seen that. And he's right, we haven't seen that. But he's trying to keep hold of Joel Perrault, at least we think he is. Which then don't make any sense, because Perrault isn't going to... For me, as I said, a bold statement, Perrault, it won't work in the Prem. For me, he had to be moved on this summer, and we've got to bring in a number 9. But that isn't going to happen. So that's disappointing, because I think we're going to go in underprepared without a... We're going to just have to hope that Calvert-Lewin stays fit. I think Calvert-Lewin stays fit. I think we've got something there. I think you've got Okafor, Calvert-Lewin, potentially Buonanotte on this right-hand side. That's an attack we can work with, but as soon as one of them goes down, I think we could have an issue, and obviously one of them has gone down as well, as I'm going to talk about sort of in further in the video. But yeah, Buonanotte overall, I do really like him. I really do like him. And as I said, if we're going to go anywhere with this team, it does need to be a right-sided winger. I think Buonanotte, when I've talked about on this channel before, I like him personally more in the number 10 role. I think that's where he's best. But if we aren't going to play with the number 10, he's not bad off the right-hand side. And we saw that at Leicester last year, when a lot of his goal contributions actually came from that right-hand side. And you'd expect him as well, with another year under his belt in the Premier League, to go up another level. So hopefully we'll see a better Buonanotte this year. But let's talk about why I've got positivity around Buonanotte. There's a few reasons why I think positively about Buonanotte. The first one is it's a loan. Now, the benefit of a loan, obviously starting off, is that we don't have to pay for him, because it was reported that Brighton want about 39 million for him. We don't have to pay 39 million for him because we're getting him on loan. That's obvious, besides potentially a loan fee. The other thing that's really, really good about a loan player is that Leeds United this summer have struggled with attracting players. That has been a key issue, in my opinion. I think we've seen it loads of times. As we know, Leeds have been rejected countless times all transfer window. With Buonanotte, we shouldn't have an issue of attracting him. And I'll tell you why, because there's 2 reasons behind this. He's a loan player, which is important in this, because that means that his primary aim next year is game time. That is his primary aim. So say we're in competition with West Ham, for example, for Buonanotte on a permanent, I think this potentially goes to West Ham, because the deem would be that they're going to stay in the league more because of what they've done and the team they've got, the likes of Jared Bowens, Paquetas. I know they've started the season poorly, but I think that they potentially would end up going to West Ham before us. However, in a loan battle, it's all about game time for the player. That is a key importance. And when you've got Jared Bowen on the right-hand side for West Ham, and when you've got Dan James on the right-hand side for Leeds, there is more chance he gets more minutes at Leeds United than he does West Ham. So that gives us a big tick in terms of Brighton and in terms of Buonanotte as well. The other thing to mention with this, which I haven't seen anyone mention with loan players, is a key problem we've had this summer is that regardless of what we think, players think that because of the last 6 teams coming up, that you are going to go down as a newly promoted side. That's what players think. That's why they're not coming to Leeds United. It's not because of the grandeur of the club. I don't think it's because of Daniel Farke. It might be, but I don't think it is. I think the main issue this summer has been that players don't want to be in an El Khannous situation where he's playing championship football in 12 months' time. That is not what they want. If you're on loan, that isn't an issue, because Buonanotte won't be here in 12 months unless we buy him on a permanent, which we won't do. And he's got an easy out. Like, I think we could have signed a lot of these players this summer that have been linked to, but we won't want to put release clauses in like we had last time. So they've got an easy out if we get relegated. We won't want to do that because we've learned from the past, I would imagine. Whereas with Buonanotte, he's naturally got an out because he's not going to be in 12 months. So he doesn't have to worry what league Leeds United are in next season. All he's got to worry about is his game time this year and who he's going to offer him the game time at the highest level. And Leeds United are absolutely perfect for that. Because we are going to offer him game time because we don't have potentially the quality in final third areas. So Buonanotte will start for us, and because next year he doesn't have to worry about Leeds United, because even if we are in the division below, which God hope we're not, he won't be here. So I think that's a big attraction. So I think the whole thing around loan players is going to be a key thing for Leeds United. And I think we've got to exploit this loan market because of the reasons I've mentioned. And I can see a number of options for us. Like, I know there's Reece Nelson at Arsenal, who right now is I think linked to one club in the Premier League. I can't remember who off the top of my head. But if that goes on, potentially you could go there and get a Reece Nelson. I think Wilson Odobert potentially at Spurs could be an option as well. I think you've got potential. Let me think off the top of my head. There's a number of more attacking players. Højlund, even at Man United, potentially is another one. That these players, I think Ross Barker was another one I named. Buendia was another one I named. All these players, right now, they probably want a permanent Villa. But the closer you get to the end of the transfer window, a loan will be available. And as we know, it'll be easy to attract loan players because it was about minutes. And it's about playing at the top level and getting minutes in the top level. And they don't have to worry about the year after. So there's a number of players there that I think Leeds United could go for in attacking areas on loan when it comes to the end of the transfer window. And obviously the spearhead of that is Facundo Buonanotte. So I actually do think there's a decent chance he comes. I had him yesterday at a 1 out of 5. I put him to a 2. I think you could even argue he'd be a 3 out of 5 for likely to come to Leeds United, because Leeds United like him. We'll offer him playing time. We know as well that Brighton want to send him to a Premier League club because it will mirror the attributes of him going back to Brighton more than if he plays for Dortmund or Lyon, which I think is Buonanotte's preference. And we can offer him game time. So I'm quietly optimistic about the Buonanotte edition, to be honest. Quietly optimistic. So yeah, that's that story. Anyway, moving on. Looking at potential other options, because this is what I want to do before I get into Daniel Farke press conference. So we know from Graham Smyth today that we're going to bring in one more attacker, probably, at least. And we're going to bring in a right-hand-sided player. So I'm looking at players we've been linked to. Bakwa is still on the table, although Fulham have entered the race there. Nottingham Forest have entered the race. I don't think this has happened, but he's an option. Nico Gonzalez is still on the list. He's still on the signing scale as well. I think he potentially could be an option for Leeds United on that right-hand side. You could potentially put Jack Rudoni there, potentially, but I see him more as number 10. You've still got Hamer there if you want something else. You've still got Demirovic on there as well that we could still go for. So there is a few options. There's obviously still Khannous as well. So there's a few options there. But the main ones I think we're going to look at in the last few weeks, or in the last 4 days, I think Bakwa's off the table. I think you're looking at, for me, Buonanotte, potentially Nico Gonzalez if that move doesn't happen to Atletico Madrid, because I think he mirrors the attributes of what Leeds United are looking for. And the other thing with Nico Gonzalez is he's at an age range that Leeds United will like. He mentioned it again in his press conference. He liked the age of James Dustin. He really liked that. Buonanotte is only 20. That will put Daniel Farke off, because he'll deem that he's not probably potentially disciplined enough because he's 20 years old. Whereas Nico Gonzalez is 26. So I think that will be a spearhead in his boat. So I'd watch out for, personally, based off nothing information that I've been told, but sort of understanding of the situation of where we're at right now, I would look out for Nico Gonzalez and I would look out for Buonanotte. I think they're your best 2 chances right now for Leeds United in the sort of final few days. Although we do know Nico Gonzalez is obviously linked to Atletico Madrid. So if that happens, then it's obviously, then write that one off. Moving on to another few things that are going on right now. Meslier, I think, will leave the football club. He's been linked to Valencia, Lorient and Rangers. So I think he will leave. I'm not worried about that, because I have been worried about sales. And I want to talk a bit about sales as well in this video. I probably should have mentioned it at the start, but I do want to talk about it a bit. But I do think Meslier will leave the football club. I'm not particularly worried. Valencia would be ideal for him, get him into a top 5 league under Carlos Corberán as well, who's obviously worked with under 21s level. I could see that. I'm not that bothered about him. It's not a big story to me. He's going to leave. Let's just hope we can get a good fee for him. This is where I bring on to fees. Ramazani I'm really happy with, because obviously he's left the football club now. But the main thing I didn't want in Ramazani's loan deal was an option to buy, because I knew it would be an undervalued option to buy based on what I expect him to do this season. There isn't one in the contract, so that's brilliant news. Bering Cross confirmed that this morning. Also, with Isaac Smyth as well, he's left the football club. Now, I'm not happy with this addition, in my opinion, because we've it's a loan with an option to buy. We should have got a permanent for Isaac Smyth this summer. It should have been a permanent deal. I don't like options to buy. I think there would have been a club somewhere across the country, not across the country, somewhere on the continent, who would have paid for a 4 million flat fee for Isaac Smyth. I don't like that. I don't like this deal. I think we needed the money up front. I think we could have used it to invest in certain players this summer to add a few more pounds to the kitty as such. So I'm not particularly pleased about the Isaac Smyth thing. The only thing I would say is, if his option to buy is before the PSR deadline, which is the 1st of July next season, it will still be on this year's PSR book anyway. So as long as the deal goes through then, it's not as big a deal, which is why the obligations to buy are not that bad, as long as they're before the 1st of July, of course. Anyway, moving on from sales, moving on to Daniel Farke's press conference. He obviously reviewed the Newcastle game. He used the excuse again around the Champions League. He basically suggested that it's not a good week for Leeds United to play Newcastle because we've played a midweek game and they're not playing a Champions League game. That's fine, Daniel, but they're currently got no Alexander Isak, Gordon suspended, Tonali's injured, Joe Linton's injured, and Shah's got a concussion injury. You're never going to play Newcastle at a better time, in my opinion, because everybody knows full well at the end of the transfer window, Newcastle will either have bought in 2 strikers who would have then been playing against Leeds United, or they will still have Alexander Isak. And also, majority of the times in the season, you'd be playing with an Anthony Gordon of team, and with a Tonali, and with a Joe Linton, and with a Shah. So this excuse, in my opinion, that we've played a midweek game and they haven't, is a nonsense. The other thing, in my opinion, with this as well, not to bash Daniel Farke, but the other thing with this is that they played Monday night in a real fierce game against Liverpool, where they played a lot of the game with 10 men, over half of it. Leeds United played on Tuesday. It's only 24 hours more, and we played a much lighter intensity game against Sheffield Wednesday, where we had all the ball and we didn't need to do the running power that Newcastle did. Only 24 hours later. So again, this excuse that, oh, well, it's a bad time to play Newcastle I just disagree. I just don't think it is. I think it's a really good time to play Newcastle. And I think the fact that they've actually got Gordon, no Isak or no new strikers, no new signings basically except Elanga, no Shah, no Tonali, no Joelinton. I think this is the perfect time to play him. So I completely disagree with him on that. And I can do, because even though I back Daniel Farke, I can still look at the sort of cons that he's doing and the stuff he says at times and think that's nonsense. And that is nonsense. Everybody knows it. So that's one thing. He also suggested that he still wants attacking players as well. It sounded like we're going to get one. He won't go into percentages. Like he said, I will not give percentage chance that we get an attacker, which is fair enough. He also suggested in the midfield, obviously we've got issues there. Tanaka's out and Ampadu's obviously out. He suggested that actually, yes, they are out, and we'll have to find a different way of doing it. Because we'll have to potentially change our midfield lineup as such. But he's not going to say why, which I do get, because obviously Eddie Howe would be listening. I think that is true, which is what he said. One thing that I do want to pick him up on, though, this press conference, and it did worry me, this, because it does. I'm not a Daniel Farke outer, as everybody knows, but some of the reasons that people want Daniel Farke out, which I do get, by the way, I'm not a Daniel Farke loving fanboy and got him painted on my forehead and got him on the walls. I don't have that obsession with Daniel Farke. The one thing that does worry me is they asked him about the Arsenal game, and they talked about the Newcastle game and tactical plans. And he suggested that people would have been annoyed at him if he changed the team against Arsenal and because it was a winning team against Everton. I can categorically say that isn't true. People were annoyed with you, Daniel, because you carried on playing players that we knew wouldn't work. You put Perot up front, which everybody knew wouldn't work. You didn't start Biol at the back when we've bought you for set pieces. We've bought you for Biol for set pieces, and you picked Struijk instead, and that cost us goals from set pieces. You played Gruev in the midfield when everybody wanted to play stacking. When looking back, everyone wanted to play stacking the holding role, and Longstaff and Tanaka as the two midfield box crashers as such, or box to box players. That's why people are annoyed at you. They won't be annoyed if you change a winning team, because each game requires a different tactical plan. And this is when you give the Daniel Farke outer's strength, because you're saying to them, I won't change it if I've got a winning team. That is what you were saying, and people will question you. No, you've got to pick a different. And I'm not saying we played the exact same way against Everton and Arsenal, because it was blatantly obvious that we didn't. But by saying quotes like that, you're just not helping yourself, mate. Because it sounds like you wouldn't change a winning team, which is nonsense at this level. And to be honest, it's nonsense at any level, in my personal opinion, because you pick a tactical plan for the game that you're presented with that weekend, or the midweek game that you're presented with. You don't pick a team based on if they've done well in the previous game or not. Yes, you can potentially see patterns that we've picked up, but you don't go further than that, really, and just pick a team because it's won. So I didn't like that comment. I thought that was a nonsense, to be honest. And the final thing that I want to mention, because there's loads more, or there's 2 more quotes actually that I'll get into, because I was tossing and turning including it. I will include it. Is we'll go with that first, and then we'll go with the big story last. Is that he said there's going to be no more outgoings, which does make me want to bang my head against a wall, if I'm being totally honest. Because he got asked about Jack Harrison and Brendan Aronson, which I think is a fair question. I think them two both could leave this summer. He basically suggested that there's going to be no more outgoings. So that means Perot isn't going to be sold. So that means Striker's not going to come in. It suggests that, I don't know, you're not going to get loads of new attackers. Brendan Aronson's not going to go out, and a number 10 isn't going to go in. Dan James isn't going to leave. I don't think anyone thought that anyway with him signing a new contract. Strouk's not going to leave, which is probably a positive, but would have allowed maybe potentially the Leeds to do a bit of wiggle room with FFP or PSR. So that is something to bear in mind. Yeah, that is what it is. I will still stand on this tree. I said it a few days ago. Leeds United have not done well in selling players this summer. Yes, I'm happy with the Sam Greenwood fee. Yes, I'm happy that Ramazani went out on loan. Yes, I'm happy that Joseph went out on loan, potentially, but I could have been swayed on a permanent there, personally. But Smyth should have been a fee, in my opinion. Meslier should already have left the club. Bamford should have already left the club. Gayab should have already left the club. For me, Perot should have left the club. There's a number of things that we should have done this summer, and we haven't done in a selling perspective. I look at the other teams. Burnley have sold quite well with Trafford, the fee they got for him. Sunderland have sold well in terms of Tommy Watson, that they got a good fee for, and in terms of Joe Bellingham and Ekwa that they sold. Leeds United have not done that. We haven't done well with sales, and Smyth probably sums that up. The fact that that's an option to buy, as I said, and not a permanent, is a poor deal, because you could have got 4 million from him, in my opinion, without having to put an option to buy on it of 4 million. But that's my humble opinion. But yeah, no more outgoings is the news there. And the final news, which nobody's going to like, and I don't like either, is that Okafor is a major doubt for the Leeds United game because he's got a groin problem. Oh, this is the issue when you buy players who have got an injured reputation. If you buy, this is like leaving your house open and then it getting robbed, and you're going, "Oh, I can't believe it's been robbed." Yeah, mate, you left your door open. Or going in the streets and sort of holding up a big sign saying, "I've got £1 million in my pocket, come rob me." And then they rob you and you go, "Why did they rob me?" They're two bad examples, but that's what it feels like. We have bought injury players, and now we're surprised that they're getting injured. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised this has happened. Yes, I know at times why we've gone for this option, and we kept Solomon fit, and I get that argument. And I get sometimes we can't get the players of quality, so you've got to find different routes of doing that, and maybe going for players with a bit of an injury record does make sense. But fundamentally, the most important thing in a footballer is his injury record. That is the most important thing, because if he ain't playing, you might as well have me. Like, who's better? Calvert-Lewin who can't play, or me who can't play? We're the same. We are genuinely the same. And you could argue I'm better, because at least I can play. And I am pretty good up front, to be fair. I won't score from a corner, if anyone cares. I mean, whipped it straight in. Keeper had no chance, went at the far post. So anyway, by the way, Leeds United, if you need a set-piece take, which I know you do, you know who to call. And I'll be free as well. I'll play up front for now. Anyway, we're getting lost here. But the point is, this is frustrating. It is frustrating. I'm trying to make a joke of it. But we knew this was going to happen. And my main worry is, Okafor not as worried. For me, when I look at it now this season, if I'm being totally honest, I think our defence looks pretty decent. I think our midfield looks solid. Our season is going to depend, in my opinion, mainly on the fitness levels that we maintain from the likes of Okafor, but mainly from DCL. I saw on DCL on Tuesday against Sheffield Wednesday, yes, he missed a few chances, but the movement was quality. It was absolutely quality. And if we can keep him fit, he will score 10 Premier League goals. I'll say it right now. If we keep Calvert-Lewin fit, he will score 10 to 15 Premier League goals. I promise you he will, because his movement's that good. If he goes down, though, we are knackered. I genuinely think we will. And I don't want to bash Perot. I don't even want to bash Nmecha, because I think Nmecha can offer at times decent stuff this season, like he already has with the goal against Everton. But it's a different level with Calvert-Lewin up front, and we saw it, because his movement in comparison to Nmecha, who wasn't playing the first half, and compared to Calvert-Lewin in the second half, was night and day. Night and day. It was so much better. Think how many chances Nmecha had compared to Calvert-Lewin, how long they were on the pitch. Now, I know it's different game stakes. We were 1-0 down at the time when Calvert-Lewin came on. But I saw a level of movement that I haven't seen from a Leeds United striker in literally years. I can't even remember the last time we had a striker move like that. Potentially, Kemar Roof, potentially. Although he's recently said that Rangers are a bigger club than Leeds, so, I don't care what he says. I'm joking. But But yeah, I saw something with Calvert-Lewin up front. And looking at the season right now, as I said, I think defensively will be solid. In my opinion, I don't think we're going to get trounced every week. I know we've already been trounced once, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think the midfield looks pretty decent. I like Stack as a sign. I think Tanaka's going to work. I think get Ampadu back. What we saw against Everton will work. But we are going to need a new guy on the right-hand side. If we get a Buonanotte, even if we do get a Buonanotte, I think the season will depend on Calvert-Lewin up front. I genuinely feel that. I think he could be a brilliant signing for us, and it could be an absolute magical work. And we could be looking back in 12 months going, getting him on a free was an absolute blinder by the 49ers. And we could be staying in the league doing that. Or we could look at it and go, he's been injured all the season, he was absolutely rubbish. And that is I think that's gonna play a large toll. I don't want to say it because I do want to be positive, and I am going to continue to be positive on this channel because I'm positive about Leeds United. That's how I am. But that's where I see it with Leeds at the moment, to be honest. And I'm not particularly encouraged by this one more signing. And what I mean by that is that's bad news. Anyway, thanks all for watching, as always. Hope you've enjoyed the video. As I said, if you could drop a like and subscribe and all that good stuff, that would massively help. Look, even in the videos happening now, so I think someone else has subscribed because we're at 949. So yeah. Anyway, thanks all for watching, as always, and I'll catch you all later. See you all later, everybody. Bye for now.